皆さんおはようございます or こんにちは or こんばんは depending on what time you are watching this. This is Cruz-sensei and I'm going to be talking about past tense of this and past tense of verbs. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's go ahead and review first what present tense is. For those of you who are prospective students of mine, welcome. If you are watching this, I hope you understand how to use present tense. So just in case, I'm going to be giving a really quick way of how to go over it. So if you are using the Genki textbook, which my current students are, in chapter 1, we learned how to create simple sentences, which were all in the present tense. We have two forms of a present tense sentence. That is going to be the affirmative, and that is going to be the negative. So if it is in the affirmative, we would use the following format. X wa y this. This is for affirmative. Now, so it would be X, Y, this. This is our way of saying that X is Y. Simple as that. If you want to say, I am a teacher, 私は先生です. If I want to say, Sally is American. サリーさんはアメリカ人です. So we're still using that X, which is our subject, wa, Y, however it is that we are classifying or describing them as this. If it's in the negative, we would be using the following format. So this is going to be X wa Y じゃないです. For example, 例えば、I am not a student. So I would say, 私は学生じゃないです. I could say that my dog is not a cat. 私の犬は猫じゃないです. So those would be examples of how we would go and put this into the negative. So how do we express the past tense? The past tense version of sentences are going to be in the following format. If it is going to be in the affirmative, we would say X wa Y でした. Now, if you notice there, oopsie, let's see if we can go and undo that real quick. This is where our big change is going to be. Over here, we ended it with this. We are now changing it to でした. So, and again, this is going to be for past. So this becomes, or rather, it goes from being X is Y to X was Y. So I mentioned before that I am not a student, but I was a student at a time. So if I wanted to express I was a student, 私は学生でした. There was a time at which I was a student. It is just not now because that was in the past rather than being in the present. Now, if it's in the negative, that's where we're going to go and change things a little bit as well. So since this is negative, it's going to go from being X wa Y じゃないです, where we were expressing X is not Y. Now we are going to say X wa Y じゃなかったです. We have now gone from saying X is not Y to X was not Y. Realize it's a bit of a messy Y there. My apologies, my email is blowing up right now. Good grief. All right, so we see here that we have gone from saying X is not Y to X was not Y. So if I wanted to say, for example, my husband, he went to a different university than I did. I went to Florida State. So if I wanted to say that my husband was not a Florida State University student, I could say, ブレッドはフロリダ州立大学の学生じゃなかったです. So Brett was not a student at Florida State University, or we could also say Brett was not a Florida State University student. Either one is fine. どっちでもいいです。Now, let's go and take a look at some examples here. So we have 3 example sentences that we want to go into. So, Mr. Yamashita was a student. Similar to how I did this before of saying that I was a student, let's go and see how we would write this out. So, if you are one of my current students, you know that I've talked to you about a little thing called TTPOV. If you are a new student to Japanese, this is going to be something that is really, really instrumental to translating just about any basic sentence from English to Japanese. So what is TTPOV? We came up with a silly analogy for it in class, or not an analogy, but more so a silly way of remembering this particular acronym, which is tiny turtles push over vases. So let's actually talk about what these letters stand for. So that is going to be, oops, sorry, I realized that that's a little too thick there. That's going to be topic, time, place, object, and verb. And I realize it's a little messy there. I'll leave that on the screen for just a moment. That way we can go into it for more detail in just a sec. All right, let me go ahead and erase that, and let's talk about what this actually means. So TTPOV, topic, time, place, object, verb. This is a really easy way of taking basic sentences in English and translating them into Japanese. So with that, I want to look at this sentence here. Mr. Yamashita was a student, and I want to figure out what's the topic. So the topic is usually going to be, the topic of a sentence. What is it or who is it that we are talking about? With that, we realize that Mr. Yamashita, the teacher, is our topic. That is who it is that we are talking about. Now we want to look for a time. This could be on a day, during a month, at a specific time of the day, anything like that. We don't have anything like that in this sentence, so we're going to skip ahead. Then we're going to look for a place, a location. We don't have anything, so we're going to go and move ahead. Now, in most cases, we have our sentences with an object and a verb. This is usually a direct object, something that we are interacting with through some type of verb, some type of action. This is just a statement sentence. So with that, we know that we are just going to go and put our object, or rather our classifier, at the end of our sentence, followed by however it is that we are ending this sentence. Rather, we are talking about the tense that it's ending in. Since we're talking about past tense, that's how we're going to be completing our sentence. So we know that we are going to mention student and then was. So the order of this sentence should be Mr. Yamashita, student, was. Now we are putting it in this order because we want to make sure that we remember that our past tense is going to come up at the end. Now, as I mentioned before, if you've been studying Japanese for a little bit at least, you'll understand that we use the particle wa a lot. Wa is our is, am, are. This is usually attached to the topic of a sentence so that we know what is the is, am, are of our sentence. So let's go and take our parts here, and we are going to put them into grammatical order. So that would be Yamashita sensei wa 学生でした. And notice there, this is our one. You can't really see that, my apologies. We have here our one, our two, and then our three. And again, notice that we're ending with deshita, whereas you're usually used to ending things with des. Now we are ending it with deshita. We're going to continue using this for the next two. That was not a cat. I will record a video talking about the pointing words. For now, I'm going to assume that you know what those are. So notice that we're saying that. We are not saying that over there. We are just saying that. This is assuming that it was close to the person that you are speaking to in the conversation and away from you, the speaker. Because of this, we are going to use sore. Again, we are going to use our wa since we are talking about is, am, are. Then we're going to have the thing that's specifying the sentence, the one that's giving us a bit more detail. Because I could just say, that was not. And you have no idea what it is that I'm talking about. So because we know that we are saying that was not a cat, that's going to be what comes up next. So we're going to put neko. And then we need to review how we are going to say was not. We see that before we would put deshita. If I want to say that something is not, it is janai desu. So if I want to say that something was not, that is going to be ja nakatta desu. Okay? And then let's look at our last one. Let me assure you, the bank was not here. So let's go and see how we are going to be doing this one. So bank. Bank is going to be ginko. I realize all the text just disappeared. That's okay. We'll keep rolling with it. I'm using a new program that I haven't used before, so you'll have to bear with me while I'm figuring it out. So, ginko wa koko, another one of those pointing words. Oh, my apologies. I'm trying to put it into another way that we haven't quite gone into yet. So, ja nakatta desu yo. Ginko wa koko ja nakatta desu yo. So, we would be saying here, the bank was not here. Now, notice that I'm ending the sentence in yo. That is because that is what we use for our let me assure you. Think of it like saying, the bank was not here, you know. Or the bank was not here, yo. So that's essentially how we are using that yo at the end there. So before we look at past tense into verbs, remember, the verb always goes at the end of the sentence. This is why I talked about that TTPOV before, because that's going to remind you that the verb always goes at the end. There are certain words that are going to be affected or used with certain particles. That is ni, e, de, or o. If you have any issues with figuring out how to use particles, there is a fantastic particle cheat sheet that is offered by the website Tofugu, and I'll go ahead and I'll link that in the video description. It is hands down the best way of being able to remember how to use your particles. I have personally been using it since the end of college, and it has been instrumental in helping me figure out where to use those silly particles. So there are a few words that don't follow that particular pattern, whereas usually we are going to be using things like ni, e, de, or o. We have here au, which is to meet a person, and this one is going to be person ni au, person ni aimasu. We also have here place ni, thing ga arimasu. Kaku, which is going to be, and I apologize for aru, that is going to be that something exists. So maybe if it exists in a certain place. This is applied to inanimate objects. Kaku is going to be to write. So if I'm going to specify the person that it is that I am writing to, that would be person ni kakimasu. Now, matsu, to wait. Usually we are waiting for somebody. So if I'm waiting for my friend at the station, then I would say, eki de tomodachi o machimasu. Wakaru, this is going to be to understand. You may hear this if you've ever seen anime or any J-dramas before and they go, oh, wakaru. Like, oh, now I understand, I get it. Or wakatta, I finally get it. So, thing ga wakarimasu, whatever it is that you understand. iru. This is the complementary verb with aru. This is to say that a living thing exists. So place ni person ga imasu. So I could say, for example, moru ni hito ga imasu. There are people at the mall. So with that being said, let's go into the past tense of verbs. The past tense form of verbs can be conjugated by adding the following to the stem of the verb. That's going to be your past affirmative. And let's go into how we're going to be doing that with past affirmative. So before, whereas we would use masu for present affirmative, now we are going to have mashita. And you see where we have that different at the end. Now, if it's past negative, before we would say masen as our present negative. Now we are going to say, that's the wrong one, oopsie. Now we are going to say masen deshita. So we go from saying I eat to I ate. We go from saying I did not eat to, or I'm sorry, I do not eat to I did not eat. So that is how we are going to be changing these verbs here. So the rules for do, and irregular verbs apply to the past tense of verbs as well. Therefore, you need to review the rules from lesson 3 if you are using Genki. If you are not using Genki, just understand that we have 3 different classifications of verbs. Those are do, and irregular, and the conjugation rules that you would use for those in present tense still apply in past tense. And that is going to be all that I have for today. If you would like more examples or anything like that, please go ahead and let me know. And I hope that this proves useful for you. Thank you so much, and have an awesome day.